Hi, everyone. I'm Kara Sundlin. Let's take a look at what was happening in Connecticut history today. 1 year ago today, on January 5th, 2021, the state was trying to determine who would be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. Mike Savino had that story.
We will transition quickly between phases when we start to see that the demand for the current phase is not equaling the supply.
The Department of Public Health is preparing for the next phase of the vaccine rollout. Confident Phase 1A will be largely complete sometime this month, but the agency is still waiting on guidance from a key advisory board. Today, the panel failed to finalize plans for who should be in Phase 1B. First responders, teachers and school staff, and manufacturing and food workers are in, as is anyone over the age of 75. The advisory group also seems supportive of adding people in conjugate settings, including prisons, group homes, and inpatient care.
These are the people that are dying in Connecticut. So shame on us if we don't consider this in that balancing act.
But some on the panel said people of color are being overlooked, despite being more affected by the coronavirus. Some members wanted to add anyone with an underlying health risk to Phase 1B, but others say the goal is to vaccinate anyone at risk of dying or spreading the virus.
This is a balancing act between protecting those that are most vulnerable and preventing the disease spread.
Without a decision on who's in Phase 1B, the DPH is also waiting on guidance on how to distribute the vaccine. The agency pointing out some groups of people will have a hard time getting to a hospital or a pharmacy.
If we don't make vaccine accessible, it will be for naught.
The state is confident it has found effective strategies with testing that can be used for vaccines.
We've been really able to expand testing access, primarily addressing our high-risk and vulnerable communities.
5 years ago, the Capitol was debating a bill to legalize marijuana in Connecticut. Channel 3's Susan Raff has that story.
The door to legalizing marijuana has been opened. In recent years, Connecticut decriminalized small amounts of pot and has allowed it to be used for certain medical conditions. But some want to legalize it for recreational use.
I think we should have an honest, open dialogue and a discussion about what it really means for our state and if it's something we should do.
Some are keeping an open mind. Last year, there was an informational hearing. Others have strong opinions. AAA is very much against it.
People think that alcohol and marijuana are the same thing in terms of measuring the level of impairment, and really there's no comparison whatsoever.
At a AAA drug driving summit held here in Connecticut, experts said there was no scientific correlation between the amount of marijuana or active THC a person has in their blood and how impaired he or she might be, that any attempt to set an impairment threshold like the BAC of 0.08 for alcohol, would be arbitrary and ineffective.
The state of Connecticut and the drivers and the people with whom they share the road are going to pay a steep price.
AAA says a study also done here in Connecticut shows more young people between the ages of 18 and 29 are driving after using marijuana than driving drunk. A handful of states like Colorado and Washington have legalized recreational pot. States collect a ton of sales tax, which has helped them build things like new schools. But highway deaths, in some cases, have doubled, and doctors are seeing more babies born with THC in their blood. This year, lawmakers are planning a public hearing before the bill goes to committees and ultimately a vote. And in a year where the budget deficit could be the highest ever, this may be too tempting to say no to. In Hartford, Susan Raff, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
And 10 years ago was the funeral service for the 3 young girls killed in the Christmas Day fire in Stamford. Channel 3's Robert Goulston had that report.
The scene of caskets filing into St. Thomas Church was surreal, knowing inside 3 lives were cut brutally short. But somehow their mother showed some sign of hope. The anguish poured into the streets of mid-Manhattan as the caskets went in. A mother and father broke down.
A nightmare forever.
It's very emotional, very touching.
Grace, Sarah, and Lillian Badger. Their faces too hard to look at when you imagine what they last saw when their Stamford home burned out of control Christmas morning.
Life is so fragile, you just never know. You never know.
The girl's mother, Madonna Badger, who escaped the fire, and their father, who she is separated from, Matthew, could not be pulled apart. Inside, they both shared stories about these 3 lives, stories that made strangers understand the hurt.
I began to feel that love of the children. She gave such a great speech.
More than 1,000 people attended the service, including Kelvin Klein, who Madonna Badger worked closely with in her career. The firefighters who tried to save the girls and their grandparents that morning were also there. Everyone touched by this mother's message. Her girls are still alive in her heart.
The mother, Madonna Badger, was pretty miraculous and brave, and basically said that love will get anyone through anything, and we have to love each other.
Funeral services for the grandparents will be held this weekend in Louisville, Kentucky. In New York City, Robert Goulston, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
And that's a look at today in Connecticut history.